Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be covering one of the more major problems which most people have, and that is arrogance. Arrogance is something that cripples most people's identities and self-improvement because it blocks them from being able to look and listen for new opportunities. And as some people put it, it damages their attention span because they choose to ignore anything else that doesn't benefit them. Now, continuing on with that thought, I want to give you a 3-step process which will help you deal with this form of arrogance and allow you to not only implement other people's ideas, but it will allow you to erase your ego or your arrogance, which will improve your life drastically over time. Now, the first step that I want to point out in this video is that you have to silence the voice in your head. The voice in your head is like the radio broadcaster on the radio, but except if the radio was in your mind, you wouldn't want the broadcaster saying things all the time, right? You want to be able to listen to the audience as well to get that feedback. So essentially what we have to do is we have to silence the voice in our head so that way we can receive information from other people and be able to relay that or respond or take action on that information accurately so we can get the result we desire. Now, how do we silence this voice in our head? Because I just covered why. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to give yourself the conscious feeling of, I'm going to listen to this person. We must do this by telling ourselves, literally, like with the voice, that we need to listen and stop talking. It is exactly like you were programmed to in school. You can use that programming to benefit your future life by taking control of your conscious and unconscious mind. So the first step is to tell ourselves to be quiet. Then once we do that, we have to understand what the other person is saying. If there's even one question that you have about saying things, even if it sounds stupid, ask the question so that way it can be clarified what their point is. And that will benefit you in your future when you take on the second step, which will be to take action. Now, we still have to cover silencing the voice in our head, so I'll continue. As we learn to silence this voice in our head, we open up the opportunities for new information to come in, even if it damages our identity, which will be kind of clashing with your arrogance, essentially. And that will help you jump to the next stage of life, which you may need to go to. So now going on to the second step, we need to be conscious, and I want you to take actions from the information you received as if you were looking at a manual, right? If you have a Lego set, a 500-piece Lego set, you set it down on a table, and you try to build it without using the instructions, your life is going to be hell. You're not going to have any clue what's going on, and you're probably just going to build maybe a third of it before having a stroke and falling on the ground. So what you're going to want to do is read the manual. That is the same exact philosophy we are applying when we are dealing with other people. We want to take the advice that they're giving us and apply it as if it was straight, direct directions on how to do it. Even if it ends up being wrong, we can correct it later. Right now, we want to be able to take the action properly so that way we can get the proper feedback and our lives aren't manipulated. Manipulated meaning like they aren't getting twisted results based upon the fact that you're not taking actions properly and that you are fully responsible and accountable for what is going on around you. Anyways, now we know why we want to do this action. We're going to cover how. Because I'm assuming most of you who are watching have built a Lego set before or built something like that, right? Maybe it's like a dresser for a more realistic example. Maybe you built a dresser and you know how to follow instructions. Great. What we need you to do is pair this with silencing the voice in your head. Silence the voice in your head, listen to what they say, and then immediately or as soon as you can, take action afterwards on what they said. So that way you remember it crystal clear and that the information will be accurate and your action will display that information told to you. If I were to look at you and tell you to do something, and I had someone else in a different room who didn't hear the directions I gave you, if I came back in, or sorry, if the third person came back in and told you what I told you as directions, then that's good. Then that is good application of the directions. I apologize there, but what I mean to clarify that a little bit more is, as someone is giving you directions, you should be almost exactly applying what they said in words into the material world. And if the other person that I mentioned came into the room and I asked them, what directions did I give this person to do? And if they pointed them out accurately, that means that you have shown that you can apply the directions accurately. Now, not everyone's going to be able to do that all the time, which makes sense. But that's just to give you an example of maybe there's like an important decision in your life that you need to make. Maybe you could then set this up with 3 people and see if it's going correctly or incorrectly. Last but not least, the third step we want to take is feedback. This feedback is really the core drive of how we're going to replace our old identity with a new identity and improve ourselves as a human being. Whether that be on an individual or a group-based level, we want you to take the time and effort to complete the activities needed to strive in your work. Now, as we look at this feedback, we want to know, well, why are we getting it? And we're getting this feedback because simply we want ourselves to have a better future. And if we want ourselves to have a better future, that usually means we have to rely on other people's information that can better our lives instead of relying on simply our own experiences. That's why books are so valuable, if you think about it. If someone like Chris Voss, you probably don't know who he is, he wrote a book called How to Negotiate, I can't remember. It's a negotiation book, very popular. That book is a life summary of his 40 years being an FBI agent in the CIA. Or wait, the FBI hostage negotiator in the government. I'm sorry. But anyways, you get my point. That is a life summary of who he was, or who he is. And that summary is what allows us to gain 40 plus years of negotiation experience within a week, 2 weeks. That information can compound exponentially and allow us to not only become smarter people overall, but allows us to improve our lives over time to make things much easier than they had to be in the past. Which is why now we live in houses instead of trying to die in trenches. Simple as that. Now, we do still die in trenches sometimes because there's like third world countries and whatnot. That's understandable. However, in first world countries, you are allowed to now be at peace and be comfortable with where you are. That is actually an option for your life. That was not an option before. Now, I wouldn't say I recommend you be comfortable because I actually recommend the opposite thing, but the point is made here that first world countries are much better than third world countries. That should be obvious. However, the feedback, going back to the initial point here, is we want to understand the other person, take the action, and then once we get the feedback, we want to bounce off of it in a way where it'll put us into a positive direction, or maybe an even more positive direction. So let's say the feedback you get is wrong. Maybe it's not the thing that you want and you get a different outcome than what you expected. Well, you have to look back at that outcome and ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, was this my fault? Did I not do the directions correctly? Number 2, if I didn't do the directions correctly, how can I fix it? And once you fix these 2 directions, once you answer these 2 questions, you can fix the direction you're going into and get a better, more inclined result towards your personal wants and needs. That is a simplified process of dealing with arrogance. It is simply a character development stage where you can remove the defense system, let your identity get changed, damaged, or removed, and then replace it with something newer, which may be stronger and more resilient and better off for how the modern society works. This adaptation, to summarize this video in one word, is key to allowing us to change at the speed the world is changing, right? People still think that getting a job is the best way to get paid. That is evidently not true anymore due to not only the internet, but also entrepreneurship as a whole. Even Rockefeller, right? He did not work in a job, right? He owned an oil business and absolutely demolished the oil industry in whatever century it was. I kind of forget. But that's not the point. That is the point. You have to understand where your feedback is leading you so that way you can understand how to take action in the future and where your next steps will be placed. If you are walking in a forest and you step on a rock and you break your ankle, you know not to step there next time because you're going to break your ankle again, or to not step on anything like it. That is where you can either form two things. You can either form a good interpretation or bad arrogance. That, in all reality, is up to you. I cannot change how you perceive life. That is solely up to you as the identity of the person you are. You have to consciously and subconsciously change all the time so that the adaptations, like, for example, walking in the forest, will allow you to not only survive, but maybe thrive in the new environment that you are facing, whether that be spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, and then you can take those steps to improving your future through the 3 steps that I've mentioned in this video. Now, these 3 steps will not work for you if you do not have a conscious goal beforehand. I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video because this is only for people who truly want to change their lives. That is why I mentioned it here, not at the very beginning. If you truly want to change your life, the thing that you want to do is get a goal in mind, a specific goal. A goal that allows you to achieve it even if it looks unreasonable. It does not have to be a realistic goal. It can be an unrealistic goal, as long as it is possible. Because there's 2 distinct differences, right? I cannot bench 315, but it is possible to bench 315. Okay? That is the difference between realistic and possible. So, going back to the idea of the feedback, we want to make sure that beforehand we need to create a goal that may be unrealistic, but possible, which requires work and dedication, which will require lots of failures, which will need you to remove your arrogance and listen, take action, and get feedback. So there is a business perspective on how to deal with arrogance. There is a relationship perspective on how to deal with arrogance. And there is a spiritual perspective on how to deal with arrogance. These steps will allow you to change your life in a drastic way and allow you to do it quick enough so you can adapt to new situations and maybe thrive in whatever context you're put in, whether that be controlled by you or not. You can gain the idea of listening to other people so that way you can be beneficial to other people as well. Anyways, that's going to be summing up my explanation of how to deal with arrogance. Thank you for watching, and if you have made it here, I would really recommend you to like and subscribe to the video. It allows more traffic to come and more people to see the video and more value to be applied to other people's lives. So, I know I rambled a little bit, but thank you for watching. Like, sub, maybe even comment if it worked for you. And either way, I'm going to be heading out here. So, thank you once again. And as always, we're here to help you help them.